computation on these random numbers which you can take as input values. So since this technique is based on repeated computation on random values or random numbers, it becomes much more easier to use this technique when it is available as a computer program. You can automate computer, you can easily automate this thing. Okay, so since this uses repeated computation on the random numbers, it becomes much easy to use this Monte Carlo technique when it is available as a computer program. And it is easy. It is easy to write a computer program to simulate or to experiment to implement this Monte Carlo simulation. When Monte Carlo simulation is used to analyze the risks of not meeting the project line, in what we are finding, what is the probability of meeting the project deadline or what is the probability of not meeting the project line. So when this Monte Carlo simulation is used to analyze the risks, the uncertainty of not meeting the project deadline, then the project duration, then the project completion time is first model as a mathematical expression. You have to first model the problem as a mathematical expression involving what? Involving two things: the probability distributions of the completion times of the various activities or the tasks and their precedence or dependence relationships. Okay, so this is the first step. When you want to use Monte Carlo simulation for analysis of the risks or uncertainty of meeting or not meeting the project deadline, what is the first step? The first step is the project completion time. You have to model it as a mathematical expression. This mathematical expression will involve what? Two parameters. One, the probability distribution of the completion times of the project activities and their precedence and dependence relationships. The activity durations can be specified in a variety of forms depending upon the form information available. In different ways, you can specify the activity durations. Let's see what are the different ways. For example, if you are having historic data, if those are available, historic data are available about the durations of similar activities, that is shown as a probability chart. If this historic data they are available in the form of a probability chart or a probability grid matrix that we have discussed in the last class, then it will be easier to specify the durations as a pertinent probability distributions. So if the durations are shown as a probability chart, then you can specify the durations as a pertinent probability distributions. I have already told you that different ways, different forms you can represent these activity durations. For example, this is number one. If the durations are shown in the form of a probability chart, then you can specify the durations as the probability distributions. I hope in probability statistics you have known several probability distributions. So let's see how it can appear in the probability chart. We have already discussed in the last class. This is one of the probability impact matrix or probability chart. Like this is in the x-axis you are taking probability, y-axis you have taken the impact. Then the different qualifiers you have used: high, significant, moderate, and low. And this is the tolerance line. Above the tolerance line, what risks are there? Obviously, they are they are more important. Okay, and you can any technique for them. Okay, you can use. You have to use more cautiously. You have to use more. You have to use more with a serious effort how to handle these risks. Okay, so in this way, if these probabilities are represented, if the durations are represented using some probability chart, then you can represent the durations in the form of probability distributions that you have studied in a probability and statistics paper. Now another way, let's see, in POT, if the information it is given as the estimates as you are using POT, then what you can do? When very less information is available, not like this. Here actually much more information is available, so you are representing as a probability impact matrix, and the duration can be represented as some probability distributions. But when or with less information available, how you can represent? We should at least be able to provide three estimates as used by the POT. We can estimate three parameters, three values for the duration, like optimistic, pessimistic, and most likely. as you are using pot, then you can represent this thing using okay, then you can use the pot value 3 estimates as you are using pot for representing the duration. Now let's see in Monte Carlo simulation how does it work. So I have told here two examples how to represent the durations. One way is when more information is available, historic data are available in the form of a probability chart, you can use probability distributions to represent durations. If very less information is available, you can use 3 estimates as 3 time estimates for the duration as that is used by pot. Monte Carlo simulation essentially evaluates a range of input values. Please say, what does it do? Monte Carlo simulation, it evaluates a range of input values. Okay, instead of taking just 1 or 2 or 3 in case of pot, it uses, I have already told you, repeated random sampling. It evaluates a range of input values which are generated from the specified probability distributions of the different activity durations. Then what does it do? This technique, it then calculates the results how repeatedly, just like a for loop maybe thousands times, a million times like that. It then calculates the results repeatedly, each time using a different set of random values. Since there is a huge number of random values, so after taking this range of input values, first it evaluates a range of input values generated from probability distributions. It then calculates what the results repeatedly, how each time it uses a different set of random values because there's a huge range of random values are there. So each time it uses different set of random values which are generated from the given probability distributions or probability functions. Depending upon the number of probabilistic parameters and the ranges specified for them, a Monte Carlo simulation could involve thousands or even millions of calculations to complete. As I am saying, please say it is using repeatedly and a huge range of input values. So it depends upon what is the number of probabilistic parameters, how many parameters you are considering, and what is the range for each of the parameters. Depending on that, it can involve hundreds of calculations, thousands of calculations, millions of calculations like that it can involve, and as a result you will get what a more accurate result. After the simulation results are available, so I have already told you here you are simulating maybe for thousands or millions of calculations. Then after the simulation results are available, these are analyzed thoroughly, then these are summarized, and the results are represented graphically, maybe using a histogram, just like here we have taken the week number, how many weeks we require, and what is the likelihood of those risks like that. So that can be represented where two symbols we have used. What will the activity start date, these white boxes, and the activity end date, these are these colored boxes. Okay, so in this way you can represent the results of Monte Carlo simulation. Actually, this is a research topic, will not go in detail. I have told only what do my Monte Carlo simulation, how does it differ from CPM and pot. So with this little bit basics, I can just say what are the steps, then we'll go to the other things. The steps for Monte Carlo simulation, whatever I have told now up to till now, I have just summarized in the form of some steps. First step, you express the project completion time in terms of what? In terms of the duration of the total number of activities, maybe n activities starting from I is equal to 1 to n. And I have already told you two things are required. The project completion time in terms of what? The duration of the activities and their dependencies. Also you have to know which activity is dependent on what other activity, and these dependencies can be okay. So first we are expressing the project completion time. Okay. This project completion time, you can represent it as a function d of f of x1, x2, xn, where x1, x2, xn, or in general xi is the project completion time of ith activity. Then in step 2, you have to generate a set of random inputs. Okay, and you know how in computer you can generate the random numbers. Generate a set of random inputs, maybe xi1, xi2, xin, because there are n number of activities using the specified probability distributions. What are the probability distributions you are given, like whether it's a binomial distribution, normal distribution, whatever distribution is given to you. or what your activities, tasks, which distributions they follow, you have to analyze, and accordingly then you can generate a set of random inputs. So generate a set of random inputs using the specified probability distributions. Third step is evaluate the project completion time expression and store them the result in DI. So then evaluate the project completion. Now you have computed all those what you have already expressed the project completion in terms of the duration. So now this D value you have to complete. So evaluate this project completion time expression, and where you will store them the result in DI. Okay, so then you store the value in DI. Then these steps, i.e. the ith activity, then we have to repeat the steps 2 and 3 for the specified number of times. As I have already told you, these how many number of times you will repeat, 100 times or 1000 times or lakhs times or millions times. This depends on two parameters, isn't it? Number of parameters and the probability distribution. I have just told you it will depend on two things, the number of parameters and the ranges specified for them. So accordingly you repeat the steps 2 and 3 for the specified number of times. Then what results you are getting, analyze the results, analyze the results for each DI, and I will vary from 1 to n, that is the 1 to n number of activities. Then you have to summarize the results and display using a histogram like this. Okay, and display the results like a histogram as shown in this figure. So this is how this Monte Carlo simulation works. This is a little bit what research oriented thing, and examples now I could not actually get because this requires actually thousands, millions of time this has to be repeated. So we'll not go into deeper. We'll go to the next technique. Before going to next technique, let's quickly look at the advantages. So in the manual approach, you can consider, since you are doing manually, a few combinations of each project duration are chosen. For example, in POT we have taken best case, worst case, and most case, and the results recorded for each selected scenario, isn't it? The results are recorded for each selected scenario. But in Monte Carlo simulation, I have already told you this will in Monte Carlo simulation, I have already told you, you have to consider hundreds or thousands of possible random sampling. You can repeat your simulation for hundreds or thousands of times, and hence what will happen in Monte Carlo simulation, hundreds or thousands of possible random sampling of probability distribution functions of the activity durations are considered as samples for evaluation of the project completion time expression to produce the outcome. So since you are considering hundreds or thousands or millions of your experiment or simulation, obviously the output or the result that you are getting, that will be more accurate than the traditional methods. Monte Carlo simulation is expected to give a more realistic result than the manual analysis, of course, especially because the manual analysis implicitly gives equal weights to all scenarios, isn't it? So in case of a manual simulation, we are giving equal weights to all scenarios, but in practice this will not happen, as the parameters will change, as the values will change. So they will not bear, all the scenarios will not bear the same weight. So this problem is also overcome in Monte Carlo simulation. Now we'll go to the second method, that is the critical chain concept. So let's see, one of the drawback of POT is that in practice there is a tendency for developers to work to the schedule even if a task could be completed more quickly. I am just saying again, you know that you have estimated using POT the expected time is suppose 10 days. Then what is the tendency of the human beings? Tendency of developer is that they will try to exactly take 10 days, maybe more, even if the work can be completed before 2-3 days, within 7 days or 8 days, they will not do that. They will deliberately try to take 10 days. Those extra days, they will go to canteen or they will go to internet cafe or whatever, do these things. They will not do. So even if the tasks are completed earlier than the planned, the project managers, they are not always quick to exploit the opportunity. They will not exploit the opportunity. What extra thing I can do before the stipulated date, because 2-3 days are in our hand to start subsequent activities earlier than scheduled. Suppose there are 3 activities A, B, C. A is expected to take 10 days, but you have finished within 8 days. The project managers or the human beings, their tendencies or the next 2 days, because B can start only after 10 days, they will not exploit what things of B can be started now during these 2 days early. They will just wait, they will do some other things, and only they will start the B after this 10 days. Similarly, if B is expected to take 15 days, but it is over by 12 days, this rest 3 days they will just sit idle, do some other things. They will not think of about the activity C, which will be activated after B is over. So these things are happening. These are normally, these are human beings' tendency. Project managers, they do that. So even if tasks are completed earlier than planned, the project managers are not always quick to exploit what are the opportunities that they may avail to start the subsequent activities earlier than scheduled. So in this context, critical chain management is a better way. It handles this problem. So critical chain management will be explored as a way of tackling this problem. How this idle time people are taking, they are using, they are yes, how the idle times they are coming in a project activity, how they can be used. The forecast for the duration of an activity cannot in reality be a single number, but must be a range of durations. I have already told you earlier. The value for the duration or the forecast, okay, the forecasted value for the duration of an activity, it cannot in reality be a single number. Just you are getting like CPM, you are taking only single number, but it must be in practically, it must be a range of durations, not a one duration. And to some extent, we are solving in what part by taking 3 values: optimistic, pessimistic, and most likely. However, you would want to pick only one value in that range, which would be target. So you may consider the range of values. Then we want to pick only one value in that range, which would be the target. The duration chosen as the target might be one that seems to be the most likely, isn't it? We have taken, suppose in part, best case value, worst case value, pessimistic value. Out of that, we know that this middle value, it most of the time it will occur. So we take that as the most likely value, isn't it? That M we have taken, that is the most likely value. You may choose a range of values. Out of that, you may select one value, which would be the target value. We have to finish the job within that period. That is the most likely value. A small example I have shown here. Suppose you have some work, you go to office by cycle and it takes normally 45 minutes to complete your journey. In some days, you may take a little more than. In some day you are having urgent work, you take less than. Now suppose you are having an important meeting at your workplace. Then what you do, you start from your home little bit early, 10 minutes early or 15 minutes early, because because in the road the cycle may got punctured or some other problem. So you keep some extra time in your hand so that you can reach before your time. Okay, isn't it? Then the average 45 minutes to make sure that you arrive in time. So that means in your hand you are keeping a buffer of 15 minutes time, so that if any problem occurs, you can take some amount of time from this buffer time so that you will reach in your office in the right time. So according to the pot, the most likely duration of the is what? Is the middle value. What is that middle value? We have taken here 45 minutes. And what will the pessimistic estimate? We have taken 15 minutes extra, so 60 minutes. And of course, there will be some days when the cyclist will beat the average of 45 minutes. Some days you run very fast or something, so you take might be 40 minutes. 5 minutes early you reach because the road was completely free and no traffic was there. So you reach 5 minutes or 10 minutes early. So 3 values we got here. One is 40. This is the optimistic time, and then 45 is the most likely time, and 60 is the pessimistic time. Similarly, when a project is actually being executed, the project manager will be forced to focus on what? The activities where the actual durations exceed the target. Just like here we have given an additional time period of 15 minutes, so that is 60. So the project manager will think of which the activities may take some additional duration, additional time. Okay, where he has to focus on the activities where the actual durations they exceed the target value. Okay, so activities which are actually completed before the target date, they are likely to be overlooked normally. So what the project managers do, if some activity they are completed before the target date, then they are overlooked. And if the early completions are properly handled, then what you can do, you can put some time in hand that will allow the project to meet its target completion date if the latter activity are delayed. I am just simplifying. suppose there are 3 activities A, B, C. A, you have estimated A will take 10 days, but you have finished the activity A within 8 days. So what you should do, instead of sitting idle or doing some non-important job for 2 days, if you can think up for B and C, because you do not know, B and C may take some more time than the stipulated one, because some calamity might happen, some unwanted thing might happen. So if you can this slack time 2 days, if you can exploit something, some tasks of B and C, then even if in later B and C gets due to some delay, then what will happen? These 2 days can compensate you to complete the whole project in time. That's what actually the objective of this critical chain. Okay. So in the next figure, we are showing a diagram or a figure. The next figure shows the findings of Mitchell, Van, and Jenchetin, a researcher who has analyzed the reasons for delays in the completion of software development tasks. Why there is a delay in the completion of software development tasks? Then he observed that this is the diagram. See, these are the weeks, these are the percentage of activities. Okay, how many percentage are completed like this? So he has observed that about 30% of the activities were finished on time. 9% they have finished before 1 week. And 7% of the activities were finished after 1 week. They are late. He has conducted an experiment, observed that 30% of the activity they are finished on time. Like this here you can see 30% they finished on time, and then okay, zero which is 0 here, 30% on week on exact time, 9% a week early. See, 9% 1 week, these are completed before 1 week, and 70% we are a week late after 1 week. So after 1 week 17%. Now he has analyzed what is, because now there is a huge graph. So this is completed before 1 week and this is completed in 30 weeks. That means this is what you can see. How much? 9%. 9% are completed before 1 week and 30% is on time. So this difference of 21%, that's a big jump. The big jump of 21 percentage points between a week early and the expected date. What the problem? The problem is due to Parkinson's law. Parkinson's law, last time when I think I had taught somewhere else in software engineering, Parkinson's law says that the work expands to fill the time available. If there is a 10 days time that you have estimated, even if there is a chance the work can be completed within 7 days or 8 days, the people will not do. This work will expand to fill the time available. They will deliberately try to take those extra 3 days. Okay, they will just slowly do the work, or they will go to library, or they will go to internet cafe, or they will go to canteen or so. But they will try to, okay, it is given 10 days, why you will finish before 3 days early? So this is known as Parkinson's law, and this is a general human tendency. Programmers, they do that thing. So this big jump of 21% from 1 week early to the estimated date, the correct date, on time date. The big jump of 21 percentage points between, it points what the big jump of 21 percentage points between being a week early and being on time is compatible with what? With the Parkinson's law. And Parkinson's law says that the work expands to fill the time available, to fill the gap, the time available. They will not do any productive work during those 2-3 hours, and they will try to complete only in the targeted date. This tendency should not be blamed on the inherent laziness. This researcher found that the most common reason for delay was the time that had to be spent on non-project work. So in order to fill this gap, they do some non-project work. As I have told, they will go to canteen or internet cafe, or they will go to this library like that. They will not do any productive work. They will not do any project work. They will do some non-project work. Now the developers used the spare time on some other urgent work. They use the time for some other work. That's why they try to fill the gap so that even if they are possible to finish early, they will not explore that possibility. They will finish as per their estimated time. So one approach which attempts to solve some of these problems that has been discussed right now is the application of critical chain concept, which was originally developed by Eliyahu Goldratt. So in order to demonstrate the principles of this approach, now let's take a what example. This example already we have taken for CPM and POT, and we'll draw the Gantt chart for that example. Okay, so now let's see that thing. Okay, and then we will explain the steps of the critical chain approach. So this example I have already taken earlier for doing CPM and POT related problem. So the optimistic, most likely, and the pessimistic times are given. What is the I want to do? I want to do the POT network. This notation we already know. We have to find out the formula for what T, you know, that is A plus 4M plus B by 6, isn't it? Expected time, that formula, standard deviation you have already known, B minus A by 6, isn't it? Those things we have already done earlier. So this is how we can draw the POT network. Now what I have done, I have drawn the Gantt chart because all these durations are given. So I have taken which duration I will take, the most likely time. This I have taken and find out what? Find out and draw the Gantt chart. How to draw the Gantt chart that we have already seen earlier. So this is the Gantt chart. Now I want to apply critical chain concept. What are the steps? There are three important steps in critical chain approach. First is derive the most likely activity durations, because here you see three activity durations are given: optimistic, most likely, and pessimistic. So first derive with the most likely activity duration. Then use the latest start dates for the activities. We have already seen the different dates: earliest start date, latest start date, earliest finish date, and latest finish date. So it is saying that use the latest start dates for the activities. Then insert project and feeder buffers. Okay, then you insert what? The project and the feeder buffers. So you have to put some extra duration. That extra duration will call as buffer. Two labels will put the buffers. One for the whole project level, that will call project buffer. Another in between the activities. For the activities that buffer will add, will call as feeder buffer. I will explain those things through an example. So we'll go to the first one. First step is derive the most likely activity durations. Here the target date generated by the critical chain planning is 1, where it is estimated that there is a 50% chance of success. Okay, so here the target date that is generated by the critical chain planning. Here it is estimated that there is a 50% chance of success. So this will approximate to the expected time identified in the POT method. So since you have taken 50% chance, and what is happening here? We are also thinking that in this POT, we are observing that this is the optimistic case, this is the pessimistic case. So most of the 50 more than what we can say most likely will use which time, this most likely time. This we can consider the 50%. So this approximates to the expected time which is identified in the POT method. In critical chain method, the developers are asked to supply two estimates. Okay, please say in POT we are taking how many? 3 estimates, but in critical chain we have to find out 2 estimates. One of these 2 estimates would be a most likely estimate. Okay, what will the normal time, just like where you will get 50% chance of success, or if you are using POT, that could be the expected time. So that's why out of these 2 estimates, one will be considered the most likely estimate, and the remaining one it would include a safety margin or comfort zone. So the first one is the most likely case where you will get 50% chance, or the most likely time of this POT method, and the other one, the other estimate would include a safety margin or a comfort zone. Some buffer time you have to keep in the hand. Let's see how you can find out the safety margin or the comfort zone. Okay, so this is a probability chart. What is the probability of completion? This is the white bala, and this is accumulated percentage of the probability. This is the probability chart. So again, the same example I have just shown. The next objective is how to find out this safety margin zone, because two activities, two estimates we have to supply. One the most likely, another most likely with some safety margin or comfort zone or buffer. Let's see how we can compute this buffer. So this is the same example I have taken. So where three values are given, optimistic, most likely, and pessimistic, maybe in terms of weeks. Then what you can do, you can easily compute the the comfort value or the safety zone. How? See, you are expecting your work will be over by 6 weeks, but some problems may come. You have given the pessimistic time as 8. So what is the comfort zone you have given? 8 minus 6 equal to 2. That means for activity 2, you are giving 2 weeks of buffer, 2 weeks of safety zone, or 2 weeks of what you can say some buffer. Similarly for B, you are expecting that the most likely time of completion is 4. But if some problem happens, the pessimistic time is 5. So what is the safety zone? The comfort zone, 5 minus 4 is 1. So in this way, find out the comfort zones. So most likely is 6. So obviously comfort zone will be how much? If you look at the previous one, so we have kept 2 days in our hand. So if this is according to this spot, so if you will use this critical chain, accordingly you can develop. Most likely time is 6, and we are giving comfort zone of 2, so that the plus comfort zone is equal to 8. For activity B, most likely the duration is 4 here, and the comfort zone is 5. That means the plus comfort zone. So then what is the slack time or the comfort zone we are giving? One week extra, like that. So like that you find out the comfort zones for the comfort zone estimate, the most likely estimate and the comfort zone estimate. I have already told you here we require 2 estimates, most likely and the safety margin or the comfort zone. So for this example, we have found out the most likely duration and the comfort zone. Then second step is use the latest start dates for activities. So what you have to, how you can find out the latest start date? Please recall the discussion on CPM and POT. We are proving what? We are moving backward, perform backward traversal. So working backwards from the target completion date, each activity is scheduled to what? It is scheduled to start as late as possible, instead of using what as early as possible. You use the principle as late as possible. So working backwards from the target completion date, each activity it is scheduled to start as late as possible. Move backwards, then start each activity as late as possible. Okay. Then to cope with the activity overruns, what you can do? Because when you are moving starting as late as possible, there might be possible that the activity might overrun. It may take some extra time. To cope up with the activity overruns, a project buffer is inserted where at the end of the project. Okay, so we may expect that there might be some delay. So we have to put a buffer for the whole project, that is known as project buffer. So to cope up with the activity overruns, a project buffer is inserted at the end of the project before the expected or before the target completion date. Then how to compute this project buffer? How many days you will kept as reserved? 1 week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks? How? One way of calculating this buffer is as the equivalent of 50% of the sum of lengths of the comfort zones. So now we have already found out comfort zone for each activity. So while you are moving backward, so how you can find out the project buffer? You find out first what will the critical path that you have already known by using CPM or POT. You can find out the critical path. Along the critical path, what activities are lying? For those activities, what are the comfort zones? Take the 50% of the sum of the lengths of the comfort zones that have been removed from the critical chain. Okay, so from the critical path, so what you are getting in the critical path? what activity is there, find out their comfort zones, and then take 50% of the sum of lengths of the comfort zones. So what is a critical chain? The critical chain is the longest chain of activities in the project which takes account both tasks and resource dependencies. See, critical chain is same as almost a critical path that we have already discussed. There is a minor difference. Please look very minutely. The critical chain is the longest chain of activities in the project, taking account of what? Taking account of two things, the resource dependency as well as the task dependency. Now let's see what is the difference between critical path and critical chain. I have already told you there is a difference between critical path and critical chain. The difference is that critical path only takes into account the task dependencies. It does not take into account the resource dependencies. How many resources are available? It assumes that whenever a task will require some resources available, which is not practically true. The resources are not available freely. So this thing, the resource dependency, is taken into account in case of critical chain. Please mark the difference. Critical path takes account only the task dependency, whereas critical chain takes into account both task dependencies and resource dependency. What is a resource dependency? Resource dependency means where one activity has to wait for a resource, but CPM or POD, they think that whenever any resource is required, that is available, which is not true. So resource dependency is one where one activity has to wait for a resource which is being used by another activity, and it is using only when that activity will release the resource, the other activity can get it. Okay. So resource dependency is one where one activity has to wait for a resource, usually a person. In our case, a resource can be a computer, or usually it can be a person in software development, which is being used by another activity to become available. If an activity on the critical chain is late, what will happen? If an activity on the critical chain is late, it will push the project completion date further into the project buffer, isn't it? If you know in the critical path, if a critical activity is late, the whole project will be delayed. But here we have put some extra thing. What? For the whole project, we have put some buffer. So now if any of the critical activity gets delayed, then what will that? It will push in the buffer. So some extra day that is reserved in the buffer, it will consume the date from that, and it will try to finish the project before the due date. Because some extra buffer amount period is assigned, it is given. So the chances of whole project will be late will be very less. Even if some, because we know in critical path, if a critical activity is delayed, the whole project will be delayed. But here, even if a critical activity on the critical chain is delayed, since some buffer amount is there, there will be heavy chance that the project will be completed before time by taking some reserved days from the buffer. Okay. Now they have given a justification why they have taken. I have already told you what should be the size of the buffer. I have already told you 50% of the sum of lengths of the comfort zones. Then they have given a reason why 50%, why not 20% or 70%. So the reasoning behind the 50% of the total comfort zones is that it is based on the grounds that if the estimate for an activity was calculated as having a 50% chance of being correct, the buffer would only need to be called upon by the 50% of cases where the estimate was not correct. So they have assumed that it is based on the grounds that if the original estimate for an activity was calculated as having a 50% chance of being correct, they have assumed that the estimate for an activity was calculated as having 50% chance of being correct. The buffer, then it would only need to be called upon by the 50% of cases where the estimate was not correct. So when if the estimate, it is assumed that the estimate is correct to 50% chance of being correct. So then this buffer, it will be used by when the rest of the 50%, when the rest 50% of the cases where the estimate was not correct, when that thing is faced, then the buffer period will be called upon. Okay. So somebody may take also some other alternative. Instead of taking 50%, they may take some other. So one alternative here. Instead of taking the 50%, they have made this proposal. An alternative proposal is to sum the squares of the comfort zones and then take the square root of the total. Just like as please recall how we are calculating the standard deviation. We are not just adding two. We have not added just the two standard deviations. We are first taking the squares and then taking the root over. The reasoning also I have told at that time. So similarly here the alternative proposal is that we can sum the squares of the comfort zones on the critical path and then we can take the square root of the total. Okay. So this is also valid. This is based on the idea that each comfort zone is equivalent to what? It is equivalent to the standard deviation of the activity. Okay. So this method of calculation, it still produces a figure which is less than simply summing up all the comfort zones. Okay. So this alternative method of calculation still produces a figure which is less than which is less than simply summing all the comfort zones that you have done last class. It is less than simply summing all the comfort zones. Anyway, these are two hot alternatives. Any alternative you can take. Either you may consider 50% of the sum of the comfort zones, or you may take first the squares of the comfort zones and then you can take the square root of the total value. Okay. Now let's see. I have first told about what? Project buffer. This we are discussing about project buffer, where we can add directly 50% of the total comfort zones, or we can add and we can take the square, then add, and then we can square root, then we can find out the project buffer. So next is project buffer. I have already told you it is reserved for the whole project. But during the activities, among the activities, between two activities, we may require some buffer so that an activity, if it is get delayed, then it may take some extra time from the buffer. That is called as feeding buffer. Just like you know, feeding lines in in this electricity network, just feeding lines, feeders. So similarly here we are using feeding buffers. The buffers are also inserted into a project schedule where a subsidiary chain of activities feeds into the critical chain. I am now saying where you can use the feed buffer. You can insert buffers, or buffers are also inserted where into the project schedule where a subsidiary chain of activities feeds into the critical chain. So the one is the critical chain, at which points subsidiary chain of activities feeds into the critical chain. There also you can use some buffers. Those buffers are known as feeding buffers. Then what should be the size of the feeder buffer? Now let's see. These feeding buffers could once again be set at 50%. Just like as project buffer we have put 50%. Here also you can put 50% of the time of the comfort zone. These feeding buffers could once again be set at 50% of the length of the comfort zone removed from the subsidiary or the feeding chain. This thing may be explained through a simple example. Now let us quickly take a small example. The same example I am taking, isn't it? So this is the same example. For that we have constructed the Gantt chart. Now where I should put the project buffer, as I have told you, at the end of the project, where the project is ending, when user training is over, then the project is ending. That means at the end of week 13. So I have added a project buffer. How many days I will add? I have to first find out the critical path. Please recall our previous critical in this POT or CPM, we have identified F and G. This is the critical path. From the start, it will come to F, then to G. Please recall our same example I have taken. So here the critical path is FG. That means what are the critical activities? F and G. So now what I have to do? Add project buffer. What if I will use the first method? I will take 50% of the comfort zones. So what is the comfort zone for F and G? Let's see quickly. The comfort zone for F is 5. Comfort zone for G is 1. So what I will do? 5 plus 1, 6. 50%. That means 6 by 2 is 3. So I can put as 3 weeks, isn't it? Just 5 for F, 1 for G. These are the comfort zones. 50% divided by 2, so 3 weeks. So at the end of this 13th week, after the project is over, expected time that I get that, I can keep a project buffer of 3 weeks by using that 50% concept. Now let's see where you can. This is about project buffer. Where I can use the feeding buffer? You can look at where I have already told you where I can use feeding buffer. Feeding buffers can be used at the point where a subsidiary chain of activities feeds into the critical chain, where a auxiliary chain of activity, it enters into the critical chain. So where it happens, you can see F and G, the critical chain. So where you are entering, you can see from E, you are entering to G, from H, you are entering to this end. This is the critical, after G is end. So from E it is coming to this critical path, also from H it will come to the critical path. That means it is possible I can put two feeding buffers, one after E is over, one after H is over. So that if any of the previous activities they get delayed, they may consume some time from this feeding buffer. So as you can see that this is a chain, like you can see B, E, one chain, and another here it is for this A, C, H. Let's first see H. After H, it is coming to the critical chain. Here after E, it is coming to the critical chain. So two feeder buffers we can put. Let's see, after H, we are putting the feeder buffer. What should be the size? You can see what is the subsidiary chain here. You can please go back. So from the end, it is going to H. From H, if you back, you will reach at either D or at C, and from C, A. So the main path, let's see, A to C, C to H, H to the end. So now in order to calculate the size of feeding buffer, I have to take into account three activities. What are they? A, C, and H. Let's see, isn't it? So that I have already explained here, the subsidiary chains feed into the critical chain, where at 2 points I have told, where activity H links to the project buffer and where activity E links into G, which is a part of the critical chain. This I have already explained. H is coming to the end project buffer, E is coming to G. So at these 2 points we can use two feeding buffers. Now regarding the size, let's first the first one. First subsidiary chain is A, C, H. This path A to C, C to H, and then H to the end. So this is the first subsidiary chain A, C, H. And what should the feeder buffer size? I have to take their comfort zone, then 50%. So what is the feeder? What is the comfort zone for ACH? You can see for A it is 2, C it is 0. And E it is 1. So H, ACH, H 2, C is 0, H is how much? H is 2.5. So let's see, ACH, here I have calculated 2 plus 0 plus 0.5. 50% means divided by 2, 1.25. That means for this feeding buffer which comes out from after H, you can put 1.25 weeks at the buffer size. Then what should be the somebody may say why not the other path? See, you can see lookly the critical chain is A, or sorry, the subsidiary chain is A, then to C, then to H. Another path you can easily find from B, it is coming to D, D to also it is coming to H. So this can also be a subsidiary chain. So that is also okay. If you will consider BDH, then you find out what should the feeding buffer size. BDH, if you will check BDH, for B it is 1, D it is 1, H is 0.5. So 1 plus 1, 2, 2.5. 2.5 divided by 2. How much? So 2.5 divided by this same 1.25. So in this case, whether you take the subsidiary chain as ACH or BDH, the size is coming same, the buffer size is 1.25. But when you will get suppose 3-4 subsidiary chains for the same path, then what value you have to take? You have to take the maximum value. That I have the general conclusion. In situations where there are some parallel alternative paths, because these are parallel paths, ACH, BDH, two parallel paths you are observing. Luckily here it is same value 1.25, so I can just directly put 1.25 weeks at the buffer, feeder buffer. But in situations where there are more than one alternative path, there are parallel alternative paths on a feeder chain, the usual practice is to base the feeding buffer on whichever comfort zone total is greater. So if this is suppose Please imagine if ACH is 1.5 and BDH is 1.25, then I have to put the buffer as the maximum one, that is 1.5. So that is the practice, please remember it. Why you will take the maximum one? Why the greater one? Why not the smaller one? We have to consider the greater one because due to the followings. Okay, because of the followings. This because if one or both parallel paths are late, they could use the same buffer. If the one path or the second path or both the paths, they are getting late due to some reason, they could use the same buffer. That's why you should use the maximum value. Okay. In these situations where there are parallel alternative paths on a feeder chain, the practice is to base the feeding buffer on whichever comfort zone total is greater. All right. So one we have already done. Then the second one is where, so it could be argued that the feeding and the final project buffer could also be merged, but explanations of critical chain planning make clear that this is not to be done. See, somebody may say, why you will put three buffers? Here two feeding buffer, then one project buffer. I can make it only one, but don't do that thing. Experience says that it's better you can put in between the activity the feeding buffer, so that the activity if small delay that can be compensated from this buffer, and if the whole project is getting delayed, that time can be compensated from project buffer. That's what I'm saying. So you should not merge all these critical all the buffers. It could be argued that the feeding and the final project buffer could also be merged, but explanations of critical chain planning make clear that this is not to be done. Why? This could be because a delay penetrating the feeding buffer time does not affect the completion date of the project, while penetrating the project buffer does. Please see what I'm saying. What is the reason why you should not merge? If there is a delay in the feeding buffer, some of activities, maybe ACS, they get some delay there. It will take only from the feeding buffer and the project will not be delayed. But if you, due to some delay in the activities, you are entering the project buffer and this buffer is also consumed, what will happen? The whole project will be delayed. Okay, so that is the major difference. So don't merge the feeding buffer with the project buffer. This could be because a delay penetrating the feeding buffer time, it does not affect the completion time of the whole project. While if the delay is penetrating the project buffer, it affects the completion date of the project. The whole project will be delayed. Okay. So now for one project, one feeder buffer, we have estimated the time. It is it is how much? It is I think 1.25. How much? Yes, 1.25. For the whole project buffer, we have already computed 3 weeks, isn't it? This is 3 weeks. This is 1.25. Now let's come to this, the second feeding buffer. So what is the subsidiary path? You can see it is coming from B to E, and then it will go to the user training. So the feeding buffer, for computing the size of the feeding buffer, I have to take the buffer of the comfort zone of B and E, then I will take the 50%. So what is about B and E? You can see B, the buffer zone is 1, the buffer comfort zone is 1, E, the buffer zone is 1. So 1 plus 1, 2 divided by 2, that is 1. So buffer size should be 1. Let's see. Yes, in the second place, for the second feeding buffer, now where a feeder chain of activity joins the critical chain here at point G, then the feeder buffer would be 50% of the comfort zones of the activities B and E. For activity B, comfort zone is 1. For activity E, comfort zone is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2, by 2 is 1 week. So for the second feeding buffer, the size should be also how much? 1. So now let's summarize. For project buffer, this size should be 3. For feeding buffer, first one it should be 1, and for the second one it should be 1.25. Okay. So in that way you can compute the feeding buffers. In the example, in the examination, these type of things will come. A sample project will be given. You will find out the pot, CPM, the critical path, then use appropriate buffers for, or use appropriate feeder buffers and project buffers for the given problem. Please practice this. For the examples, please practice those things. Now, just 2-3 minutes you will take to complete this. Project execution. When the project is executed, the following principles are followed. No chain of tasks should be started earlier than scheduled. Please say. No chain of tasks, no chain of activities should be started earlier than scheduled. Please follow it. But once the task, once it has been started, or once the task has been started, it should be finished as soon as possible. Okay, so no chain of tasks should be started earlier than scheduled, but once the task has been started, it should be finished as soon as possible. This invokes what the relay race principle. You might have played this race game, so it invokes the relay race principle. However, developers should be ready to start their works as soon as the previous dependent tasks are completed, isn't it? So here the developers should be ready to start their assigned tasks as soon as the previous dependent tasks are completed. The buffers we have discussed, feeder buffer or the project buffer, they are divided into three zones. The buffers such as feeder buffers or project buffers, they are divided into three zones. One is green, another is amber, and another is red. And each of the zones may be given 33% of the size. So what does it mean? If you are entering into the green zone, what does it signify? Green. If the project enters into the green zone, then what is happening? Green means where no action is required if the project completion date creeps into this zone. So if the project completion date enters into this zone, then no action is required. You are safe. If amber means if the project completion date moves into this zone, then an action plan is formulated. You have to formulate an action plan. You may not implement it. You may not execute the action plan because you are anticipating that something will happen. The project is going to be delayed. So prepare an action plan. And if the project completion date enters into the red zone, then whatever action plan you have performed during the amber zone, that has to be immediately executed, else the whole project will be delayed. This is what is the meaning of green, amber, and red. So in our previous example, the project buffer size is 3, I have already told you. So almost 33% for every zone. So red zone 1%. First green zone 1%, amber zone 1%. So green zone 1 week, then amber zone 1 week, then red zone 1 week. So if the project completion date enters into this first green zone, then no action because we are already having 2 weeks days more. But if it enters into the next zone, next 1 week, that means the amber zone, that means only 1 week left. So you have to immediately make an appropriate action plan. Oh, these things are getting delayed. If I will not take these precautionary actions, then the whole project will be delayed. Make a plan. But if the project again exhausts those weeks included in the amber zone and it enters into the red zone, then immediately whatever plan you have made, immediately execute. Otherwise, there's a heavy chance the project will be getting delayed. The project will be moving out of the target date. The project will exceed the target date. Okay, these are the inferences. Please recall or please remember these inferences. So this is about when you are entering into some particular zone, what action to be taken, that we have listed here. Okay. So this is all about critical chain method. So today we have discussed the Monte Carlo simulation method. We have discussed the critical chain method along with an example. We have discussed the advantages of Monte Carlo simulation method. Also the advantages of critical chain method. All right, we have taken it from this project management book. Thank you very much for your patientful hearing. Now let's discuss about the questions. Any doubt now, please? Any doubt, please?